And the funny thing was, it was getting to the point where the people who were using it were telling me I need to start charging, which I thought was brilliant.
Well, that's great though, isn't it? That's exactly what you want to hear. Let's start with becoming a freelancer, Rob. What was your journey from you graduated, to start working, and ended up as a freelance software engineer?
Yeah, so it was quite a long time ago now, I guess, probably about 20 years or so when I kind of made the switch to freelance. I mean, I wasn't really that long out of university. You know, I don't remember even calling myself a software engineer then. I feel like that's a newer thing somehow, you know, sort of software developer roles sort of early on. And yeah, I just kind of quickly realized it wasn't quite how I wanted to do my thing and sort of build things, I suppose. You know, because I think I'd sort of grown up with tinkering with computers and kind of playing around with sort of programming and things. And I just liked just sort of building things my own way, if I'm honest. So, you know, straight away I kind of found when I was sort of in a kind of, you know, sort of software development role, realistically a team and kind of like having to build things a certain way, you know, being completely honest, I found it a little bit, I don't know, sort of stifling a little bit, I suppose, and just not having that autonomy and having all these other things I had to do other than just kind of building stuff. So maybe that was a bit selfish in hindsight, but that was kind of how I felt about it. I think another part of it was that I kind of quite early on realized that I kind of wanted to be close to. I used to say it quite a lot in my CVs, even as like, I'm looking for kind of like a client. I'd like a client-facing role. I figured that out quite early that I kind of really wanted to be talking with the people who I was building software for, and kind of really understand the problems they're trying to solve, and kind of just get to know them and kind of feed off their energy a little bit. Because for me, that was what gave building stuff kind of meaning.
That's interesting. A lot of
Yeah,
people don't want to be client facing. So what was
yeah.
it that drew you to that?
I honestly don't really know. I think about it a lot now. You know, what is that? And I think I don't know. It just gives it more purpose for me. Like I've always really enjoyed coding, and I still do. Um, but I don't know. I kind of want to know who my audience is, if you know what I mean. And I kind of want to know what it's doing for them, and to kind of see the impact of it. Um, I don't know how well I could articulate that way back then, and I still struggle a little bit now. You know, but it's like that's kind of what it was for me, and that's why I found one of the reasons I found those early kind of software development roles quite regimented and kind of you know that kind of separation between the client or the user and what I was doing. I just found that quite I know I found it a bit depressing, to be honest. So it just wasn't for me. I'm not saying like I'm, you know, that if you don't feel that way, you see it the wrong way. That's not it. It's just that was the way I saw it. That penny dropped, I think, fairly early on, and I articulated that when I was looking for roles as saying, look, I'm actually looking for a client-facing role. I want to be in the room talking with the client and then going building the thing. I don't want you to hide me away. But that was actually quite hard to kind of make that happen in. I don't know, particularly back then, because maybe it was a slightly different world. Now it's like, oh yeah, get whatever we want, the kind of developers talking to the customers and all that kind of stuff. That's a bit more kind of, you know, even now, you know, maybe some developers don't want to do that, but there's this feeling like in startups that they should be. You know, 20 years ago, it wasn't the case. They didn't want you doing that.
Yeah, I can totally relate there. I think I haven't thought about it in quite the same way, but as you was talking for that, I'm thinking that really mirrors my own experience. You know, I went into contracting after about 18 months in employment because I just was frustrated there. And I think I have a very similar experience. And I worked for a fairly large engineering consultancy company. And as you say, I built software and then showed it to the business analyst or the sales guy who then kind of talked to the customer. And I think, as you say, that was quite frustrating for me because at university I'd been building Quake bots and releasing them on the internet. So my email inbox was full of, you know, my customers emailing me and telling me which part of the bot sucked or which part of the bit they loved or how cool it was. So I've literally had thousands of customers emailing me. I mean, it was a free bot, so I wasn't making any money from it, but I had that interaction and that feedback and that that constant feedback loop of every time I did a new lease, somebody coming back saying this sucks or I love it, and that was so rewarding to see that people are using it. Then you're going to build it for enterprise, don't you? You build it, you ship it, throw it over
Yeah.
the wall, then nothing, and then you get the next project.
Yeah, that's it. And I think if you have an early taste for that kind of interaction with customers or users, the good and the not so good, sometimes it's like whatever they're beating up on you for not adding some feature or fixing some bug or something. But it's always interesting. And if you had an early taste for that, and if that's your thing, it's then quite hard to not have that element to your work. And I suppose we can go on to the freelance stuff, but I guess I'd already had a taste of the kind of freelance stuff. Um, while I was at university. Like I just kind of thought, I'm going to see if I can get a little bit of project work because I just wanted to build stuff and get a little bit of pocket money. And I remember even then at uni going onto one of the early kind of freelance platforms. Elance was like one of the first
Yeah, I
ones.
remember that.
I don't think that's still around. It's probably been rebranded or built Portel or something. And yeah, so I had that taste of that then, just working directly with the client, and kind of like sometimes the client was quite difficult, but it was always interesting. It was always real, and you were kind of building this thing. And then, if you got it right for them, they were just so like appreciative and kind of like it's just like game changer for them. It means they can go and do their business or whatever it is. So it was just I'd had a taste for that on a small scale. So when I came out and I was just like into it, just I could come out of uni, so I just got to get a job and then get into that job, and then suddenly there's that kind of wall between what I do and kind of what what the client once. And so I found it quite stifling. And like I said, when I was looking for roles, I put it on my CV that I actually wanted to be client facing, but it didn't generally get me what I wanted. In one of my roles, I very much tried to kind of push a little bit to get in that position. So occasionally I'd sort of like, I'll come to the meeting kind of thing. And then I get there and it was like, I remember a couple of times I just found it so interesting. Oh, I'm here and the client's actually here. And I just suddenly start asking them questions and talk to them, try and pick it apart. And like I said, the BA would be there or like the client, the account manager would be like, okay, well, you could, stop talking. So it was, so I kind of I guess I just figured that out quite early. And then, but as for going freelance, it wasn't really a sort of conscious or calculated decision from being employed to go to freelance. It just kind of developed that way. So I was actually in a role that I've been working there for a year, kind of web development role for a marketing company up in London, and he built some quite interesting stuff there. And actually had a reasonable amount of autonomy because they kind of didn't really know what they were doing. So they get these clients and they just be like, okay, we need like a CRM, we need a booking system. And back then, not so much kind of off the shelf stuff existed. So, generally if you needed like a CMS. So I remember I built a CMS there just from scratch because a client needed it. And that was just what you had to do. So that was quite confidence building in terms of building quite, reasonably complex stuff, more or less on my own a lot of the time, as a relatively junior developer, but just having to get on with it. And deliver for the client. So I was in that role, and that aspects were quite interesting. But the kind of not getting to speak to the client was not, it was kind of dispiriting. So I kind of wanted to get out of there, and so it was more like, how am I going to do it? And at the time, I don't know if you would remember this, John, but there was, it still happens now, but there was kind of a sort of an early kind of wave / gold rush around affiliate marketing. Did you ever kind of get any wind of that? So I actually got on that train because I kind of a few things came together. Weirdly, it was kind of related to some freelance work I was doing as well, because still on that Elance thing, because I was still had that knocking around the background, a few little bits and bobs I was doing on there. And a guy there was getting a business off the ground, and he mentioned this thing called AdWords, Google AdWords. Google AdWords was brand new, and I hadn't heard of it. And he explained what it does. And it's basically you buy traffic, and it's like, and he was in some niche thing, and he was only paying like a few pence a click or something. And I was thinking, okay, like maybe I could do something with that. And then in a roundabout way, I found out about affiliate marketing, and I also kind of was aware of this thing going on with, you remember the whole thing around 0% credit cards, like balance transfer cards? Do you remember that came out? That was a big wave as well. So it was kind of a combination of these things came together, and I kind of thought, I can see something I could do there. Because also it was before like Money Supermarket and Compare the Market and all that. So I could see all these 0% market products were coming on the market, these credit cards where you could just do your balance transfer and kind of save a lot of money on credit card interest payments, basically. It was kind of a thing for a while. yeah, I thought I could just throw out this page where we've got the deals on there, and I just link people through to apply for a credit card. You get paid like 30, £40 an application. And I could, and I thought, okay, and I could use AdWords to get the traffic. I got onto AdWords and was putting it all in, and it was like, got it rolling. And I was paying like 20, 30p a click for credit card leads to then sell for 30 quid. So that was a nice little earner for a bit because it worked. Like, it was converting well. There was nothing else out there like it. And so I kind of got that rolling while I was in this role I wanted to get out of.
I was on the wrong side of that credit card thing, obviously. I was going the other way. I think
Yeah.
I racked up about 30 or 40,000 pound in credit card debt then,
Yes.
because there was no fee.
Yeah.
I had a good wage at the time. So I'd get the card, they'd give you a 10 grand credit limit, 0% interest for 12 months. So I'd get the 10 grand cash,
Yeah.
put it into a bond paying 6 or 7% for 12 months.
Yeah.
And in the 12 months, pay back the credit card and shut it down.
Yes. Yeah. People doing all sorts of things like that, and I think they've made it a bit harder now. But there was a
Yes.
kind of, it was a gold rush on a number of fronts. To be honest, it was like people doing all sorts with them. But yeah, people went crazy for those 0% cards for a while, and the banks, really wanted the leads for them because they thought they were going to make the money. I don't really understand how, but anyway, so it was a thing for a while, a little kind of lightning in a bottle moment, and I sort of. So I just threw something together, just basic kind of PHP, one page, just kind of listed credit card deals. I think I had a database, maybe not. I think I did in the end because I had a little management system where I could go in and update the rates and the deals and the affiliate link, and it was all sort of dynamic and whatever. But anyway, I got that rolling while I was in that role that I wanted to get out of, and just quite quickly it started going somewhere. I sort of made like a few £100 in the first month, a few hundred more in the next, and before I knew it, I think peaked about making like 6 or 7 grand a month, which back then for like a junior developer, I was just a bit like, well, okay, just wrote my own ticket. Of course I hadn't, but I thought I had. It was very much like it went up, and then it kind of, and a bit later it came back down because lots of people started doing it, and then, like I said, money supermarkets and whatnot came along and did it bigger and better, and really, took the market properly. But it was enough for me to allow me to get out of that kind of rat race that I felt like I was in anyway. And I got out, and then I was working on that, thinking, what shall I do with it? Not really sure. To be honest, it was kind of a weird one because I made a bit of money from it, but it was my first taste of realizing that there's more to it for me than just making money. So it sounds a bit cliche, but I kind of cottoned onto it quite early on. I think the thing was, I'll say I could have built Money Supermarket, but the beginnings were, the seed was there. But it was making a bit of money, and I kind of thought, do I really want to do this? This is really what I want to do? And I don't know whether I really made a clear decision on it, but I didn't really then push further with it. I was just a bit like, okay, it's making some money, but I don't want to be like, 0% credit card guy or whatever. It's just not really me somehow. But it was good for getting me out of that role, get me some sort of temporary freedom, I suppose, and a bit of space to think. And yeah, it was just through sort of serendipity, really. That related to that affiliate marketing thing. One of the networks, one of the affiliate networks, which is quite. I was in quite close contact with someone who worked there, who kind of handled some of the accounts and whatnot, and kind of helped you get things set up. And she just mentioned to me that she'd been speaking to a guy who was looking for a freelance developer to build something for him. He was doing a startup thing, and he needed a kind of a sort of kind of platform built to kind of run his startup. She knew that I built stuff that I could code and whatever, and so she just put the two and two together and just said, do you fancy having a chat with him and seeing if it's something you want to do? So that was how I got my first sort of freelance project. The kind of freelance thing sort of just rolled on from there. But I ended up building this platform for this guy to kind of get his startup off the ground and got paid. He bargained me down away on price quite a bit. I quoted him, and basically he said, "How about half that?" And I took it. And then it ended up taking like a couple of months to build it. I mean, it was not very well paid, but fortunately, I still had the affiliate stuff. But yeah, and then it just kind of developed from there. It's a little bit hazy now, but it was kind of very much a kind of word of mouth thing. I think I put up I ended up putting up a kind of just a basic web page, just saying, what I do, freelance development, and kind of the kind of stuff I build. And yeah, just kind of developed from there, really, the freelance side.
So you enjoyed the sales side, the client-facing side. Did that transfer to doing sales? Did you enjoy selling? Did you learn to enjoy selling?
Yeah, it's a weird one that cause I don't consider myself a salesperson, a salesman.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, but I quite enjoy, I guess, what you might call sort of consultative selling, I suppose, where I'm sitting with someone and they've got a problem and I feel like I can help them solve it, and just need to help them understand what I can do for them, and sort of what we could build to kind of solve that, and also just two-way street, try and understand the problem more deeply and then figure it out together, and that can end up being a kind of form of selling because it builds trust. But I've never really seen it that way. Even with the SaaS businesses, I'd say it's a similar thing. It's not like I'm trying to sell to you. It's more like I'm trying to understand what problems you have and see if there's a fit, and then see if I can help you solve the problems. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I mean, the kind of used car estate agent model of selling is quite horrible.
yeah,
But when it comes to meeting someone and going, hey, what's the problem? What are you facing? What's the challenge? Oh, have we tried this, this, and this? Here's some options we can do. This is how we could do it. Shall we go ahead and do that? And this is how much my time will cost. That's kind of fun because part of that little bit of this is how much you got to pay for it at the end, we're digging into a problem and solving a problem. And that's what I enjoy. That's why I came to the software personally. So how did you find managing as a freelancer that kind of, I'm assuming you were just on your own. When you're on your own, you tend to have that roller coaster where you're busy doing the work.
yeah,
And then once you finish, you have to start looking for the next project. So you get that roller coaster of feast and famine. It's
yeah.
very, very hard to break out of when it's just one of you because you can't be selling and doing always at the same time because one tends to dominate what you're doing. So how did you cope with that? How was it for you?
Honestly, I don't think I ever really solved that problem, but I became increasingly aware of it because I freelanced over sort of 10 years, so quite a lot changed in that time. I think I mean quite a lot changed sort of in terms of outside of work, kind of family and things like that, getting married, and I think I was still freelancing when we had our first kids, so that changes things. Yeah, so I just don't really feel like I ever figured that out. I think the thing is early on, when I was sort of in my let's say mid 20s, and my outgoings were a lot less, and I still had the affiliate stuff, still bringing in a bit as well, and that took a while to tail off. Um, I think then, even though I had the gaps and whatever, and you can't bill, 100% of your time realistically as a freelancer, it's very difficult. And the other thing as well is you can only really, I mean, this is my experience anyway. Maybe some people can do it better at freelancing, whatever. But in my experience, what ended up happening was I couldn't bill 100% of my time, but I could still only bill, like my rate had to be sort of competitive next to, say, typical contract market rate. But of course, when you're contracting, you're working 100% of working hours. So it's a different thing. So that was quite hard. So I don't really feel like I figured that out, but and maybe I could have done if I was just better at freelancing, better at kind of how you do that. But I never really figured it out, and I think it was like that was what kind of partly what brought about the end of freelancing for me, because early on I had enough money, even despite that, it was okay. But as years went on, I think I just felt more poorer and poorer because I had my outgoings were going up, but and my day rate went up a bit, but with, like you said, still with those gaps there, and or sometimes like quoting a project for like fixed cost, which is quite common in freelancing. I have to do that way for like an initial build, and that can go one way or the other. you know, sometimes you do a little bit better out of it if you get it done quicker than you thought, and other times you're like, scope creep, and and you kind of feel like, okay, I guess I do need to do that because we said we were going to do that, and it just rolls on a little bit. So I feel like I never really figured that out, and that was part of the reason that I kind of got to a point in freelancing. I felt like, okay, I need a better solution to the kind of the monthly sort of family burn rate, if you know what I mean. So I always remember I got to whatever, more or less my 10th year of freelancing. I'd be absolutely crushing it, and like in my mind, and I got to the end of the year, doing all the books and everything, and I think I made something like 75k. And I remember thinking that's good, but it's only kind of just enough, and I've got to go and figure that out all again next year and hope that I at least match that, and there was so much kind of in freelancing, free family within that. There's so much serendipity around how you get projects and whether you get projects or whether there's just like a big gap or whatever. It's just so unpredictable that I just kind of penny kind of dropped. And like I said, I think we had a sort of a daughter by then. She was very young and sort of thinking ahead and just thinking, I don't think this really makes sort of sense. So I think initially I thought, okay, so I probably just need to get a job. And actually, looked around for roles. And I thought it'd be cool to work at a startup. Maybe that'd be, a bit more interesting, maybe a bit closer to the client sort of thing, that kind of stuff. And actually, isn't on my CV. It was so short lived. I managed to land a sort of a role at a startup in Brighton, which is not too far from where I live. And it sounded really cool, kind of exciting, and it was quite exciting. I was there for a couple of months, but yeah, again, it just. Maybe something. It's not London money. Like Brighton's a bit strange because it's kind of like a tech hub, but the salaries are a little bit depressed there. At least they were at the time. There was sort of a promise that it might develop into something. Salary might go up, but the pay was not great. And actually, it was a bit strange because they were a very early stage, and actually there turned out to be problems even getting paid at all.
Right.
So, because they just didn't have a lot of cash in the bank, and they were sort of a bit of debt and stuff. So anyway, I was there for a little bit, but it kind of, yeah. So probably moving on to the next thing, which you're probably going to ask about, but this kind of tension point, I suppose, getting to the end of freelancing, really hasn't had a better solution to this whole thing. Going out to the world of work again, being a bit underwhelmed. Well, just realizing that isn't really going to do it either. Financially and other things, led me to a kind of a bit of a head, I suppose, where I kind of needed to kind of maybe do something different.
All right, before we talk about what that something different was then,
Yeah,
let's put some context to some of that. So 75k for a lot of people is going to sound like a lot of money.
I know.
But that's your business turnover, isn't it? You've got costs to come out of that as well, and you're going to pay tax, and you've got all the associated costs with being a freelancer. So it's not quite the same as making 75k as a salary.
Also, at the time, my wife wasn't working. Just taking on a mortgage and other things. So it's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, 75k would have been an absolute fortune for me when I was back, like early 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we move on from freelancer, then, what would be your top tips for anyone that's thinking of going freelancing? 2, how to get into it, and 2, to survive as a freelancer.
How to get into it? I think it's like it's a bit of a cop-out answer, but I think it is talking to people. Just putting yourself in a situation where you're talking to lots of people, getting across what you can do for them, and just finding out what their problems are, and maybe some light bulbs go on between you, and you do some freelance work. Maybe you can build something for them. I mean, that's often the case, certainly with founders, startups, and things. They're looking for someone just like you a lot of the time. So if you can be that person in that moment, then you're going to get somewhere. And the thing is, in freelancing, as you quickly find out, you don't need hundreds of clients. Especially in software development, because projects, there's always this kind of big initial build of something, and then it's follow-on work. And quite often you end up with a client for years, just from one project. So maybe that's a little different to something like web design or sort of design where it's quite sort of small project, and then
Yeah, that's true. There's a great example of that. My brother took on, in I think 2011, he took on a client that was supposed to be a 1-week project. He ended up working with them for about 6 years.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Totally goes that way.
Yeah. So I mean, a few other things as well. A couple of my longer term projects and actually better payers were even through network, but through friends who work at other corporates. I had a few corporate things I did. There was a friend from uni, and he's in kind of he's very successful now, and he worked at still does work in like the BI kind of business intelligence kind of world. It's kind of like an other world. BI consulting, and they have some big clients, and he kind of brought me into a couple of his projects, but as the kind of web guy, because they didn't really do web. So I'm building dashboards and things for that. They're building the big kind of back end big data stuff, and they need a dashboard, and so I come and build it. So that's another kind of route I found quite good. And I mean, the freelance platform websites like the Elance, or nowadays it's Upwork and the others. I mean, obviously you don't want to get stuck on there, but they can be a good way to get going. Just get some initial. If you're willing to take a bit of a hit initially, build up a little bit of reputation. Get a few kind of testimonials, because testimonials are key. Like you put on your LinkedIn, put on your website, and they make a big difference. Yeah, I just think it's like you don't need much to get going, and it's a little bit. You can do it. You can start it on the side. You only need one client, just building them something, and once you've got one or two clients, before you know it, you'll have three, four, five, and you just be like, it's not a problem of having the work. It's it's just getting it all done, and jumping between projects as well is.
What about surviving as a freelancer and getting the work done?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how I managed. I'd often just jump between projects in a given day. I was quite sort of instinctive just in terms of how I kind of split time. It was more like a little bit around kind of what have I promised to the client, what kind of pressure am I feeling there, sort of you kind of gauge it between them, and you just kind of divide your day a little bit. And just obviously the main thing is you just want to be showing progress. You don't want, and it's a bit like I always think with freelancing, particularly when you get a new client, it's a little bit like when you're building like a product like an MVP or something. You want to get something in front of them as quickly as possible to kind of show that you can actually do what you say you can do, but also get early feedback. So it was a funny thing before I even thought about MVPs and stuff. That's how I'd approach doing freelance projects. I'd very much like, let's get a quick idea about what it is you want to build. Let's work out what's the minimum we can build to kind of get us rolling. Bulleted list of kind of what that is, and we'll build that over a couple of weeks, and then we've got something we can talk about together. So that was something else, I suppose.
It's a great way of continuing that trust, isn't it, that you've built in that sales process?
Yep, absolutely. Because the last thing you want to do is go away for like 2-3 months and they're getting anxious, and you're billing for your time and they're just not seeing anything. So, yeah.
So freelancing came to an end. What was next?
So I guess I'd really enjoyed freelancing, but I kind of got to a point where I kind of saw it as more of a kind of like, now I've got a bit of a problem to solve. Like I said, I looked at kind of getting a job and tried something there. It didn't work out. But working in that startup for very briefly and seeing that, I guess it was like literally just a very small startup with like 3 or 4 people in a room in Brighton, and the founder was there. He built this thing. It was like some kind of tool for marketing agencies, and I guess I just kind of like spending time around him, and I kind of thought, he's not like some, I don't know, superhero genius or something. I mean, he's a smart guy. Like, we're all smart, aren't we? But he was just there, just building this thing, and he had these, taking on users all the time, and kind of like, building up this recurring revenue business. And I kind of thought, I'm here like I'm working for him, but I just think I could do something like that. I could do something like that as well. So in a way, it was great that I did that, because I wasn't there for a long time, but it just flipped. It was one of those things that just flipped a sort of light bulb on in my brain. It made me think I could do this. I'm not like, it's not that other people do this. I could do it as well. So so I spent a little bit of time there. I enjoyed it, but I was kind of like, okay, I need to get something. I need to get something going. I need to figure out some kind of angle on something. I've been reading quite a few business books. I was like, okay, read all these business books. I guess the kind of whole startup thing, kind of lean startup and all that stuff, was just starting to kind of come up a bit and become more of a thing in people's minds. You had these books come on like Lean Startup and some of the other ones, and I kind of started reading those and kind of just getting a bit of an idea about maybe how I could build something and get something out there and maybe get a business going. I guess this whole idea of building identifying a problem or some people who needed a problem solving, and then building that MVP from them, getting something in front of them, getting their feedback and iterating it and so on. It was kind of like, for me, it just felt very similar to the way I approach freelance work, I suppose. But a different model of getting compensated, rewarded for that. One that could be more sustainable, that I can, it's just like, okay. And then almost like each user is almost like a mini client, requires much less of your time, pays you a lot less. But on the flip side, you're building a sort of a product that, in my case, SaaS, once you've got a client on board, it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you over time. It's scalable, right? So you can kind of build this thing up, and, potentially there's no limit to to sort of where you could get to.
So what did you build, Rob, and how did you come
So
to that idea?
yeah, so I was just kind of thinking, okay, I need to be on the lookout something, an opportunity to build something for people who actually want it built. And one of the, I can't remember exactly. I think I picked this little nugget up from a few places. One or two of the books I read. I think it was even like, like the Paul Graham essays. You ever read any of those? I haven't
Yep,
read all of them. I read a
many.
few of them. I think it was one of those. I think it was something like How to Get Started Ideas or Schlep Blindness or something like that. Anyway, this was ideal that was like, don't go off and like try and kind of build the next Facebook or whatever. Don't try and kind of build some product that's for everyone, this humongous market, it's going to be a unicorn or whatever, because that's a really tough game. Not many succeed at doing that. Sort of cottoned onto this idea that no, I should focus on something unlikely, something kind of a boring problem, something kind of not obvious, for a kind of a small but sizable enough niche, that I could build a business around that would sustain me and my family, and hopefully maybe grow into something a bit more. So through that lens, I kind of thought, no, I need to find that kind of idea that no one else would think about, that other people are ignoring, So that was my kind of lens for it, really. So yeah, this is quite good how we've come through this. So off the back of working at the startup that didn't work out, I was kind of back to square one, if you like. And with this kind of idea, I wanted to do a startup thing, but I didn't have anything, didn't have an idea at that point. I was kind of like, what am I going to do? I don't know. So I kind of thought, okay, what I'll do for now is I'll get back into freelancing, but I'll do it properly this time. So I kind of thought, no, this time I'm going to really nail it, and I'm going to figure out the feast famine thing. It's going to be great. And, so I kind of thought I'd do that. And, but my starting point at that point, because I didn't have all my clients that I had before, it all sort of, they were way in the past now. So actually I went on to one of the freelance platforms. I think it was Upwork, whatever. And I went on there and I was looking around at projects and getting a bit demoralized, to be honest. I was looking at, oh God, they all want something for nothing, and it's whatever. And people, all these projects for like, $50 to build like, a CRM or something. And it's like, all these bids from offshore, and it's like, oh no, this is rubbish. It's not going to work. But I was looking around there a little bit, and I came across this one little diamond in the rough, I suppose, that I saw on there, which was, it was a project to build. I guess as they phrased it, I think thinking back, it was like, to build an app for a window cleaning business, right? That's kind of interesting. And well, just for the reasons I said, because it's a bit unusual. Like, okay, a window cleaning business needs software. That I wouldn't have thought of that. So I clicked into it, I was reading through it, and basically the story was that they, a sort of successful window cleaning business. They had like, 3 or 4 vans, so they had a kind of a team. It wasn't just some guy, kind of a guy on a bike with a bucket and a squeegee. It was more of a kind of, they were sort of scaling up a little bit, so there are a few employees, few vans. So they, they had a problem sort of keeping track of everything. So yeah, because you think like sort of one window cleaner nowadays, because nowadays they do the jobs a lot quicker. Because it used to be like the squeegee, everyone did the squeegee, and it took a lot longer to clean a house. But now they've moved to these pole systems. Have you seen them? The window cleaning poles.
Yep.
And I didn't know any of this at the time, right? But the whole industry has kind of modernized. Basically, it's become in itself kind of a bit more scalable. Yeah. So with that, it's created a problem where they've got they're taking on a lot more work, they're taking employees, they've got a lot to keep track of, and it's become a problem they couldn't manage on paper, or so there were some like very old desktop software. So this project that was on this freelance side, they were actually using an old product called Window Cleaner Pro, which was an old kind of creaky old desktop software. Which worked great for them to a point, but they found that, okay, it's good and all, but it's effectively single user, so I can only use it in the office. There's nothing for the guys out cleaning the windows or employees. They don't have an app in their hands where they can see their work and tick things off. It's got nothing to help us with payments. They wanted to be able to kind of automate texts to their customers and invoicing and all this stuff. So yeah, they were basically like oh yeah, we need something better. We need something that does all this stuff. It needs to be cloud based. Needs a mobile app and all this. And and I looked at it and I thought, well, yeah, I can see how that's a problem. It's interesting because I hadn't thought of this problem, but now I think about it. Yeah, I've noticed these window cleaners. A lot more of them around now, and they're kind of like they're building these businesses. They've got these kind of swish-looking vans, all kind of fancy logos on the side and these pole systems. And I kind of thought it's funny because it made it, yeah, there's something going on there, isn't there? There's a little wave going on in that industry. But obviously the software is behind. Like the technology that they use to clean the windows has kind of moved forward, but the software had been left behind. But yeah, so I looked at this thing and I was just like, they wanted all this stuff, and realistic. I can't remember what their budget was that they put on the project. It wasn't, it was reasonable, but I think it was like a few K or something. And I thought, yeah, I just thought, yeah, realistically, if I was building it out as like a freelancer, I mean, that's to do everything they want there to get it to the point where it's polished enough for them. And it's not going to be 5 grand like of my time. It's going to be a lot more. So I thought, okay, now I'll reach out to them, just try and get a bit more understanding of this, but I'll put it to them. Well, a few things. I don't think to get what you want, I don't think you're going to be able to afford to get what you want if you just get it built for yourself, like bespoke. I just don't think you're going to end up in this world of pain where, you spend a bit of money to get a thing that doesn't work very well and then just keep spending more and more money, to get it to a point where you can even use it. So, and I said, the other thing is, presumably if you've got this problem, other businesses like you have this problem. And I just said, look, I'm interested. I'm a software developer. I'm interested in, building a product. Realistically, if you think there are other people out there like this, I would be interested in kind of developing, an initial sort of product MVP to kind of get this rolling. And if enough people are interested, and it can, we can get a few people on board, then you will end up getting. You can still influence the software. You can be instrumental in sort of developing this software, for your own benefit. But you won't have to pay, whatever, 100 grand to get it built for you. And yeah, it's a family business. She kind of runs the office, and she was really kind of like, yeah, that sounds really cool. Like, yeah, she said there was this straight away. She said, yeah, there's this forum that we're all on. It's really kind of buzzing on there. There's loads of window cleans, and they're always talking software, always moaning about, the software not being good enough. So I was like, yep, okay, there's something here. She offered to kind of introduce me on this forum because it was a little, in hindsight, it was a bit of a kind of cliquey sort of place. So I couldn't have just barreled up there on my own and said, I'm going to build some software for you guys. They would have just gone, yeah, whatever, go away. But because she introduced me, and she's quite well respected on this forum. She's, people know that she's running quite a kind of, successful business. They were like, okay, let's hear this guy out. And basically the post was like, what would you want from like the perfect window cleaning software? It was on a forum called Clean It Up. Basically, yeah, the thread just went crazy. I don't know, it ran to like 20 pages, and loads of people posting on there. Some were a little bit like skeptical, or like, paper's fine for me, or I'm fine on Excel, that kind of stuff. But by and large, there was a lot of energy around the idea. It just kind of went from there. It just kind of pulled.
So I'm dying to know then, did this window cleaning company become your first customer, or did you co-develop with them and make them kind of an investor and a customer? What happened?
Yeah, they did. They became first customer, really number one row in the database, and they were the first customer. But they didn't invest in it. So I got the forum post going, and then off the back of that, I set up like a kind of like a page, one of these products where you can go and set up a page where people can suggest features and kind of vote on ideas and things. And I sort of set that up off the back of the forum post and got people posting on there, putting the ideas on there, and that gave me an idea as to kind of what we should build first. But from that, I guess there was a lot of chat on the forum, and then the page with the kind of voting and sort of ideas thing kind of whittled it down to people who are actually really going to engage with kind of a bit of a kind of product development process. And that whittled it down to, I think it was actually maybe a little over 30 who were very kind of keen to be involved, obviously very interested in software and the idea of being part of something like this. Where did I start? I basically said to them, okay, I've got a kind of an idea of what you want. Okay, there's things on this list that I'm not going to be able to build straight away. Things like a kind of drag and drop planner, like a Kanban type thing. Okay, that's going to have to, we're going to have to, let's get the basic kind of system in place. For me, I always said like the most important thing is the thing's got to be reliable. It's a job scheduling system. It's got to work. You can't afford for it to just kind of go random. Everything's got to work like clockwork, the core sort of scheduling side of it. So although they were sort of talking about these fancy features, I said, let's get the core of the system sorted first. Let's get you guys kind of up and running, because they were, using basic software and Excel and stuff. So let's get you off that and get you onto this with core scheduling. And then there's all sorts of cool things we can do on that. So they kind of bought into that, and I just said to them, look, okay, I'm going to knuckle down. I'm going to get something in front of you. I think I said I'd get something in front of them in 2 weeks. It might be a little longer than that. I think it was probably 3 or 4 before I was at a point where I was like, no, I could actually say, here you go and sign in and have a play.
So did you take their interest at that point as validation, or did you ask them to pay up front and make a financial commitment so that you had some definite validation?
Yeah, for sure. I would never have been able to get any financial commitment from them up front. There's no way that would have happened. I mean, not unless I said, look, we're doing this thing where 10 window cleaners want some software built and we're going to get together. It's going to be your software. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I seriously doubt if I'd started asking them for money up front, they probably just tell me to, go away. But then the window cleaners is one, that might work in some other industries. I don't know.
So you kind of took their engagement as validation.
Yes.
What then did you offer them as a business model? Did you say that this is going to be a one-off buy when I built it, or was it going to be a SaaS with a monthly fee? And what were the expectations that you set, and how did you manage that?
I did say quite early on this would be, you get this for kind of a realistic monthly fee. I think we did talk a little around pricing quite early on, because there was one other cloud software, even that was quite old, an app called a Worker. So they had that as a reference point, and that guy was charging nothing, charging like £10 a month. So I think I was kind of saying, it will be heavily priced, but I kind of want to offer more than he does. There'll be a kind of, a comparatively priced option, but then I want to be able to offer you guys the features you actually want. So realistically, it would have been more than that. But I guess I talked around it a little without kind of saying it's going to be exactly this price a month. I just kind of said, look, it'll be competitive, but I'm kind of shooting for building slightly more kind of next level product. So how the charging thing worked. So off the back of the interest in the forum, the ideas thing, the voting thing, and saying to them, I'm gonna get something in front of you in a few weeks. That's when I went off and just got going on it. I actually modeled the kind of basic kind of way that it worked. I suppose I wouldn't want to say UX because I did it slightly differently, but the basic kind of workflow I modeled on Window Cleaner Pro, as I mentioned, the old desktop software that the first person who kind of brought this to my attention that she uses, because I spoke to a few of these guys, of those who use software, they tended to say that one, although it's old, it was the best thought out. So I kind of thought that's a good kind of, I didn't copy it, but I definitely didn't argue with it too much in terms of how it was the workflow side. I thought, well, if this is working for them, and that ended up being a really good decision, I think, over time. But I kind of got this. I'm going to get this MVP in front of you guys, and I did that. Those initial 30 or so came on board straight away, for a trial. It was more like a beta, I guess, not a kind of timed trial at that point. It was just like, just give you access to the software. It's free for now. I really need your feedback. All of them were really good on the feedback. Some were really good, and instrumental in helping me shape it. Particularly the lady I mentioned who introduced me to the idea in the first place. 2 or 3 others were really, really kind of helpful with testing it and kind of making really good suggestions. And then just getting to the charging thing. And this is maybe, I don't know, was it a mistake? I'm not sure, but I started building it in October. I think it was 2013, and then I ended up launching it in terms of I might have made it available to more people before I started charging for it. But the point at which I decided to launch it publicly, and I rejigged the website a little bit, make it a little bit flashier, and started charging for it, was actually not until I think it was April of 2014. So it was like, in the end, that ended up being like about 6 months, which maybe was a bit long in hindsight. And the funny thing was, it was getting to the point where the people who were using it were telling me I need to start charging, which I thought was brilliant.
Well, that's great though, isn't it? That's exactly what you want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was agonising over the pricing and things as well, and I remember talking with the lady where it all started, and just literally confiding with her and saying, I just don't know. What do you think about this pricing? Is it, I literally remember having and she was just a bit like, just it's fine, just go for it. People will pay, and we need you to start charging because this needs to be our business is running on it now.
We're relying on it. We want you to stay around.
Yeah, they're basically like, we need you to succeed. So it was a really nice, that was a really nice moment actually, and it got me over the line. But in hindsight, maybe I could have been a bit more brazen and charged a bit sooner.
So what did you start charging at then?
To be honest, the pricing didn't change a lot, but it was like I had a starter plan. I think I called it starter or basic, starter, pro, and ultimate, and they were like. It started off, it was 15, 25 and 50, and then charged extra for users. I think initially I only charged £5 a user, extra user, but then realistically the extra users tended to be the window cleaners out and about, and they're not really using the full software. They're just ticking off sort of jobs on a worksheet. But initially it was 15, 25 and 50, and then over time I changed that to 19, 29, and I think, I can't remember, 59 or something.
And how far did you scale then eventually? To how many users did it get to?
I got it, so over four or so years, got it to just over 1,100 businesses, a lot more than that users. I don't know how many users there were off the top of my head.
Even at the minimum, £19 a month, that's a fine little business.
Yeah.
So most software engineers are going to really struggle. They could maybe find the idea. They can probably build the technology in whatever stack. They might have struggled with the customer relationship, but you've just provided a great model for that. They would definitely struggle at getting to 1,100 customers. How did you manage that?
Honestly, I wish I could tell you.
I'm not sure I believe that, because you've done another business since. So.
Well, as things stand, it's a one-hit wonder, to be honest. I mean, my second one, I did done quite well, but not on the same scale. And maybe I've learned some things from that. I'm still trying to figure out what they are. But with the first one, Cleaner Planner, combination of things. I think the timing was really good on it, and that was accidental. But when I realised the timing was good,
I think you're not being fair to yourself there.
Maybe.
It's not accidental. You had your eyes open and you spotted an opportunity.
True.
Give yourself some credit there, Rob.
True. Yes, I knew it when I saw it, for sure. I was looking for it and I knew it when I saw it. I mean, I can still remember, when I came across this thing on that freelance platform and chatting with the initial lady I'd been chatting with. And I remember just that the feeling, and I was chatting with my wife about it, and frankly, she didn't get it at all. And I was a bit like, no, she didn't tell me not to do it. She couldn't see it because she wasn't in my shoes. That's all. And I was just a bit like, I know there's something here. I can just tell. It's the energy. You can feel it. I actually did a little post on this. It's something I've kind of been thinking about quite a lot. Is I wasn't pushing. Put something out there. Put this in front of this lady and on the forum. But I wasn't pushing it on them. I was just like, what do you think? And they were like, yes, we need it. We need you.
That
build.
pulled in mind is really important. And there's a chap on LinkedIn from Harvard, Rob Snyder, posts about this a lot and talks about it, and it's absolutely key.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll look him up. I've been looking for that since, that kind of feeling of being pulled, and it's not. Yeah, my second SaaS, which is actually my second one, was actually a small one I acquired and then kind of rebuilt it and tried to grow it, but it frustrated me all the way because I couldn't get to a point of feeling that pull back. It was always like, I'm trying to push it. So the thing with, was just that pull, that moment of kind of feeling like, okay, this is on, let's go. Once I'd kind of put something in front of his initial users and shown them I could really do this and got that interaction going between them, they ask, I build, and we go. And then that community, there's such a tight-knit community, and they talk. And it's not even just they talk, it's kind of almost like a little bit of a bragging rights thing. So they were just a bit like, they want to be seen to be using the best stuff. It's all with their equipment as well, how they kit out their vans and everything. So there's a little bit of a thing going on software as well, like who's the savviest on the software side. And yeah.
So as an outsider looking in, I tend to, or what I'm hearing or what I'm picking up in this is probably that it was, again, that people skills, that being willing to engage with the customer, talking, the fact that instead of just putting in a freelance bid, you went and talked, however you did that, to this lady, really got to know them, really got to understand the problem, did the consultative selling. And then from that, you got that trust, and that led to that introduction to that forum, and immediately credibility, borrowed credibility from that lady in the forum. And then, as you say, hitting immediately on that pull. It's really hard to find that, but I think a lot of people forget that. We're software engineers. We rush out, hey, I'm going to build something cool.
Yep.
Build it, no one comes.
Yeah.
We forget that you need that pull, you need that demand, and you need to find that little group of people for who that are sat there going, oh, this is really bugging me. I hate this problem. I'm fed up of dealing with this problem. And if you come along and say, hey, I'm going to help you with that problem, you get that pull, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the other thing as well, it's very easy to kind of tell yourself that the pull is there, tell yourself that something's on because you want to build the thing.
Yes.
So, and you see, like, that's the whole thing. You see kind of this whole idea of validation kind of inadvertently kind of abused in a way. It's almost like, oh, validation, that's just a thing that's a problem I've got to solve so I can build my thing. Because I know I know the opportunity's there. And sometimes you're right. In the second thing I did, I kind of more thought, the opportunity must be there. I just need to kind of like put it, whatever, the product isn't quite how it needs to be. I need to kind of rebuild it and rejig it and things.
You've said the second thing a couple of times now. So that implies that this window clean thing stopped. It came to an end. How did it come to an end? What happened?
Yes, that's a very good question. Because it had a natural momentum to it, I guess, to go to your previous point. I never really needed to market it. I mean, I tried things. I agonized a lot over those years about, okay, so I've got something here, but do I want to go big with it? Do I want to go to other industries? Do I want to, whatever? And so I kind of, threw money at marketing, trying to make it go a bit quicker. Didn't really work. I think because focusing on window cleaners, I think I was already in the face of every UK window cleaner in the land, really, and they were going to come when they wanted to come. I was not going to make them go any quicker. So the only way maybe I was going to go bigger with it was to go broader industry-wise. And I just never quite got to a point where I wanted to do that. I mean, another aspect to it, I thought, okay, I do need to raise money. I had conversations about it. It was not too hard to get. I don't know. That's changed in different eras in recent years. Sometimes it's a little bit easier, sometimes a little bit harder. But to be honest, I think that business I probably could still raise even when it's hard because it was clearly something.
You had customers and cash flow.
Yes, exactly. So it wasn't too hard to kind of get an offer of investment, and then I agonized over that because for me it's like, if I take the money, what am I going to do with it? I'm just going to spend it, and then realistically, I don't own all my business. It's the beginning of.
You've got a boss then.
Got a boss. The expectation is we're going to raise again and all that stuff. So, and I thought a lot about that, and in the end, didn't take it. But I think what it made me realize, or what brought the focus on, was that why am I in this business? What's the purpose of it behind me? And kind of the penny dropped that. It wasn't really about the problem I was solving. Interesting as the problem actually was, when you pick it apart, actually window cleaning scheduling, it's reasonably interesting. There's some nuance to it. But on a, and nice customers to deal with, down to earth, and helping them, save time and kind of have more money in the back pocket and things like that, and grow their businesses, all good stuff. But I just think, on a more fundamental level, it wasn't really the thing that I really wanted to kind of like double down on, go the distance with.
So how did it end?
Maybe even a year or two of me just being agonizing over these things and kind of just feeling more and more, trying things, thinking, should I do it, should I not? Ultimately, just the writing more and more being on the wall. I just need to get out of this. Maybe it's not. Yeah, it's not the thing I want to keep going at for the next 5 years. Okay, I'm going to try and sell it. The sort of short story there is that I ended up using working with a broker to do that. It was a bit of a different time because it was a few sites where you can advertise your own SaaS now and sell it, find buyers and stuff. And I've used them now recently, but they didn't exist then. The only real way was through a specialist broker. That was the only way you were going to find a buyer. So I went through all that, and I did well out of it, but the fees were high for the broker, and I didn't do my tax planning wasn't great. So yeah, but I did okay. I did okay out of it, but ultimately it was just realizing that it wasn't my true purpose, I guess.
I won't push you to share numbers if you don't want to, but roughly kind of what was the multiple of earnings that you sort of saw?
I think it was like 3.2 or 3.2 or so, but it was, I just go, it was just scraping 7 figures, so but in dollars, so it was a little bit less in pounds.
Okay. But that's pretty good for a bootstrap business that you started. You earned presumably 100% at that time, or maybe you had 50-50 with your wife to a bit of tax planning. Where, we quite often see VC businesses exited for hundreds of millions. But then when you look at how much the VCs had, the preferred stock, the debt that was in there, the founders can walk away with nothing.
Yeah.
After 7 or 8 years. After 4 years, you've walked away with just about a 7-figure exit. So that's astonishingly successful. That puts you in the top 0.5% of exits probably from most startups. So again, I think you should feel very proud of that. And it's something that
Thank you. Yeah.
Most founders are not going to achieve VC or otherwise.
Yeah.
Cool. So yes, you mentioned the second one then. I'm getting the impression here that the second one has come about by you going to maybe one of these websites and acquiring an existing business.
Correct. Yes. It was on Acquire, which was originally Micro Acquire, if you might have heard of them.
Yeah, I have.
Come up like in the last couple of years. So it's quite an impressive growth story in itself, and startup story. And anyway, yeah. So you can go on there and you can advertise your SaaS on there. It's very popular with bootstrappers because you can kind of have to use a broker and you can just deal with people direct. Yes, I was aware of it, and I guess I kind of thought, okay, so yeah, I'd done the previous SaaS. It was a little bit in between that, whatever, and there was COVID, I think, at some point, which kind of was a little bit of a hiatus.
Small thing.
Actually, having done the exit, that was really helpful through COVID. Just to kind of, because I didn't have any other works. Although the business turned to be quite resilient through COVID, as it turns out. So anyway, I'd done that. Came through COVID. I ended up going back to contracting for a bit, partly just for my own sanity, because I'd kind of been let's say, sort of navel gazing a little bit after the exit, trying to figure out what to do next, thinking I want to do something big and impressive, and then going after something which probably don't have time to get into right now, but it didn't work out. It wasn't quite. Again, it was a sort of another misfire. It wasn't quite the right thing for me. Wasted a bit of money on that. But I got to then through COVID, and I got to the other side. I think it was towards the end of COVID, and I thought, God, I'm just going around in circles in my mind, and I just need to. And part of me just kind of thought, I need to get back in the game. I need to sharpen the axe again, because my tech skills have gotten a little bit stale, if I'm honest. Because the Clean Planner I built with ASP.NET web forms, which I've been doing for like 10 years. So it was kind of like the my sort of ASP.NET Sistine Chapel. But I kind of, knowing what I know and feeling like, okay, might need to be employable. I thought that's not really going to do it now. I need to kind of refresh my skills. So I and over COVID and doing this other sort of misfire startup thing, I actually got heavily into serverless at the time, which was very like, service is now a bit like, okay, yeah, it's serverless, but at the time actually it had its moment. Remember where it was quite like the new thing, and you could very much go and sort of look for work that was specifically serverless, and they were looking for people who knew how to do it. And I played around with it, building this sort of MVP thing of COVID, and more the takeaway from that, positive takeaway that was discovering this new serverless thing and thinking, this is kind of cool. I kind of like this. But anyway, that got me back into contracting for a little bit, and making money again, because quite honestly, the proceeds from the previous sale paid off the mortgage and some other stuff. So I was kind of like, I was kind of being off for a while, and I was just running low. So contracting got some income coming back in, but actually allowed me to kind of put a little away, a little bit there, and then I kind of thought, okay, maybe I could get back into the SaaS thing, but maybe I could do it differently this time, and I could maybe not have to go and find the idea or find the kind of initial customers, and maybe I could start with something that already exists, more of a kind of fixer upper where they've already got an initial.
So I think that's quite brave, because a lot of those businesses, the bit that needs fixing is the customer acquisition.
You're one step ahead of me, I know. So to be honest, it's been kind of a tough lesson, that actually, and I don't know how, in hindsight, I don't know quite how I stumbled into that. So the second one, they're called practice management software. So it's a similar thing to Clean Plan. It's kind of like work scheduling, but for accountants. So it's not accounting software. It's more for them to keep track of all their tasks internally, sort of deadlines for VAT and company accounts and all that, and keep track of all their works. It's kind of a similar concept. So that's why it resonated with me, because it was a similar kind of problem. There was this existing app there that the guy built in Rails, and it was fine. It was reasonably well. It was very reliable and reasonably fast. It was not user friendly at all. The UI was just pretty horrible. Sorry to the guy who built it, but it was a while ago he built it, so I'm sure he won't mind. And so I kind of knew I needed to, at a minimum, reskin it, but I wasn't a Rails developer, and I tried to get into Rails, and I just couldn't. I couldn't get my head around Ruby and all that. And I kind of felt like, what, I'm going to be more comfortable if I rebuild this, using tech that I'm comfortable with and I understand. So I know this is kind of like the never rebuild thing, but it was like I just felt like I can't be productive with how he's built it. I can't find a way forward with it. It's just not it hasn't built it the way I built it.
So what did you rebuild it in?
So I built it in quite a kind of quirky way, I suppose, because it's my own thing. I could do what I want with it. I'm not a big fan of kind of all the front end stuff of recent years, the kind of heavy kind of React sort of Next.js and all that. I kind of like the old even we call it SSR days, but sort of more the kind of more server side rendered and quite light on the front end, and kind of just a bit of JavaScript, a bit of CSS, that kind of thing. So I kind of thought I'd do more that kind of way of building it. So I deliberately didn't pull in like a React or anything like that. I built it with Express.js, but with TypeScript and Postgres, and then I used I used TypeScript for the views. So I used like TSX, TSX views, but not using TypeScript. So at least allowed the views to be sort of strongly typed, which was quite nice. It's ended up working really well, and but it was a slightly different way of building it.
Okay, what did that rebuild have any impact on the bottom line?
It might not have been necessary. Obviously, if I bought the app as like a Rails developer, it wouldn't have been necessary. I could have just reskinned it, maybe reworked it a bit, because I kept the existing database. So essentially, the model is still kind of the same, although I've tweaked it a bit and added some things. But there was no way anyone was going to sign up to and buy the old software. It was not selling at all, because it was so old looking and clunky. The UX was really clunky.
So I've got to ask, what made you buy it then? It's like the software's not good. Nobody signed up for it. It's presumably not got that scalable route to market, which is normally the thing that a developer hasn't built, and normally why they're selling the business, because they've got a bit of traction, but they have no idea how to take it further. So it's got neither of those. What drew you to it?
Yes, that's a really good question. I had 30 or so customers. So it's not like it didn't have any, and they've been on there a long time. So they're obviously happy with what it does in terms of the way it solves the problem. They've got their head around the UX and they've made their peace with it. So it's accountants. So they're a bit like, there are loads of them. It's like window cleaners. They're kind of a bit of a boring industry, but there are so many of them. And I kind of thought, who you're targeting, don't you? It's a very clear ICP. It's not vague in the slightest. And I thought, if I already have 30 of them, that's almost like where I got to with Cleaner Planner when things were kicking off. So I kind of thought, if I can get, that's my group. If I can get talking to them and I can find out, what I need to build to make this better, once I'd kind of had a basic framework I was happy with.
So you can find out where they'll hang out again and where they're all.
Find out where they hang out, and just basically, just get talking to them and just get under the skin of it all. And that could be almost like my kind of beta group to then push on with. So that's what I thought I was buying, and some revenue, because I paid for the revenue realistically, a kind of modest multiple. So I wasn't, in that sense, you're just buying a kind of passive cash generating asset, because it's very low support. Like the guy said to me, barely hear anything out of them, and I can test that yes, they're very low demand on the support front. But the flip side to that, as it turns out, was they just didn't want to talk at all. They just don't, they do not engage. As a by and large, one or two of them, but they're just not a chatty bunch.
I guess also if it works, they've not got much to talk about.
Yeah, to be fair,
the problem's solved for them.
you're quite right. They're not in that kind of initial stage where they're like all excited about a new bit of software. They're like, "Why is this guy emailing me?" The software's fine. um, but also, I think it's just something about just kind of whatever the general persona of accountants versus window cleaners. To generalize, window cleaners are very chatty. They want to talk almost to a fault. Calling up all day. When they're out there cleaning the windows, and they're like, "Let's just have a chat about this software thing, Rob." Whereas accountants are much more. They're much more focused on their work, and so basically I thought that's what I thought. I thought it was the seed of something that I could then get under the skin of it properly, understand them, and they could help me build a better business. And it's not that didn't work at all, but it was not, it was not as potent as I thought it was going to be.
So now you're learning marketing then?
Yes, basically I found myself in a position where I need to figure out marketing, and that's not a very comfortable position for me. I didn't really have to do that with Cleaning Planner. I think that's the thing. All I had to do was figure out how to talk to people and build what they wanted. And then the kind of marketing took care of itself. And I think often it does when you're building in a space where someone really needs what you need.
Needs what
you're building. Yeah, the pull, exactly. And the pull wasn't it. And that's what's really framed it for me, because this second time has been the absolute opposite of pull. So I even stopped doing the contract and be like, okay, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to rebuild this because I think that's what needs to happen. And I stopped work for a bit, and I spent several months, best part of 6 months, quite honestly, rebuilding this thing, trying to kind of stir up some energy in those 30. I just couldn't get anything out of them, and I just. That was a real grind, because all the energy for the whole rebuild and just making, trying we've got version 2 coming. It was all me. And I was just getting one or two people were like, yeah, go Rob, but it was like night and day compared to the Cleaner Planner off the ground experience. So it was, so that was kind of a tough lesson in a way, but I didn't do too badly in the end. In the end, I ended up selling it for more than I bought it for. It, gave me some revenue over the couple of years that I had it. And really, it was just my time in the end of the day that I put into kind of the rebuild.
And some valuable lessons again. You've learned where your strengths are. You've learned the importance of that pull.
Yeah.
And we could talk lyrical probably about why a relight is not the answer. But moving on. Yeah. So you've sold that one. You've exited. You know, not as successful, but still a success. You sold it for more than you bought it. You've had some revenue. Yeah. Learned some valuable lessons. What next?
So I've only just wrapped up the exit on that. The sale, I should say, because actually I'm sort of not exited because I've sold it. Sort of managed to fund this buyer through acquire.com, previously MicroAcquire. No, actually in the end it was Flipper. Flipper, FLIPPA. Because I had it on both of them. Flipper actually turned it out coming up with someone. I had a few inquiries and back and forth of somebody nearly going to buy it, ended up being a time waster. Anyway, this guy eventually who I ended up selling it to is a really interesting guy, and he's an ex-CFO of a SaaS company. He's a little bit older than me, a bit more experience, and he wanted to kind of take something on that's his, he can do something a bit different, do his own sort of startup thing. But I think for him, he didn't want to start from scratch. Didn't quite know how to do that. So, and this resonated, being accounting. So anyway, I got to know him a little bit. And I think initially, just going to say it to him, I was like, I just want to kind of move on from this. I just want to, you take it from here. But as we had a lot of conversation in terms of handover and just talking things out, and eventually conversation kind of moved towards how would you be interested in sort of continuing to be involved for a little bit, just on kind of sort of like a fractional CTO sort of basis. And it sounds like quite a grand way of saying it, really, because it's not really whatever. It's even though this business is actually quite old, it's still kind of early stage. So to say I'm a CTO, it's not that formal, but it's the way I kind of see it is almost I'm like his it's sort of like a fractional co-founder, or a kind of because he doesn't have a co-founder and it's just someone to bounce ideas off. And obviously I've got a lot of context on what I've built and also the kind of the market as I understand it. So I kind of came around to thinking it'd be kind of interesting because it's like a different sort of role within it, and it's not me on my own anymore. and he's bringing in a couple of other developers, just part time for now. But so this was like a sort of more a hands off role for me. I mean, I'm still doing a few little troubleshooting bits and pieces, but it's more sort of bit more leadership strategy kind of stuff, yeah. So it's a little bit different. So I'm giving that a try.
So if I got this right, then that you've sold your stake, you're no longer an owner, but
Yeah.
you're working on a consultancy basis, providing that fractional CTO.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, just 2 days a week, and I've got no equity for now. But we've kind of said we'll do this for 3 months, and if it looks like actually it's going to be more of a permanent thing, I mean, I'm not ruling it out. Then maybe there'd be a scope to kind of get a little bit of stake back in some way, shape, or form.
Okay. And what, in the meantime, are you looking for fractional clients? Are you pursuing that, or is there going to be another acquisition or startup on the horizon?
To be honest, I probably don't have. I probably don't have the funds at this point for another acquisition, so that might have to wait. But possibly another product. Having learned all that I've learned, I'm quite fussy now about maybe what I kind of go and try and do. Apart from anything else, I feel like if I'm going to build another thing, I want it to be a thing that I'm not in a few years thinking, "Oh, I really want to do this."
So not practice management for law firms then, because I hear that's a growing market.
It won't be nothing. Nothing against that idea generally, but I don't know, and I don't know what it is, to be honest. So I'm kind of searching a bit at the moment, which is part of what the fractional CTO thing is about, because I kind of figure it's kind of like a slightly different way of being involved in a kind of startup and working with other people. Maybe I could do some more of that kind of work. There's a little bit of kind of imposter syndrome there. It's kind of like a fractional CTO, So I think I'm good for kind of the early stage, like really early stage,
Which I think is what most people really need, because it's getting off that ground where they need that fractional element. Once you're more established, you want somebody full time, and you want somebody that's maybe at the more strategic element than the how the hell do we get that MVP in 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that. Because I think when it gets that further along, when you talk about sort of scaling up, hiring and stuff, I mean, it's like whatever. I can offer ideas, but it's not something I've done. So I say scale up. I scale up a little bit with Cleaner Plan, but it's not, in the whole scheme of things, not massive scales. So recognizing where my strengths are, and I feel like I probably could help other startups and people like the guy that I'm working with now, potentially. So I'm kind of maybe sort of toying with that idea.
Okay, cool. Is this where then launching a SaaS podcast comes in?
Yeah, I think it's something to do with that, and I haven't quite figured out why I'm doing the podcast yet. Did you know when you started yours?
I knew exactly why. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. Well, the idea with the podcast is very much because there are podcasts out there, particularly in SaaS, and there's some good ones I listen to that are very much kind of more on the kind of victory lap end of things, where you're already like doing, I don't know, million or whatever AR plus, or and you've got a team and all this stuff, and it's like it's looking back on all the looking back over the years, and sometimes they touch on the early days, but it's not as clear now.
Glamorized, isn't it? It's like, hey, this was great when we did this, and we were lemon profitable, but it's not the oh shit.
Yeah, exactly. The kind of unvarnished warts and
I'm not looking forward to tomorrow because of this.
Exactly. So I'm really keen to kind of zero in, and I've called the podcast Trial to Paid, and it's kind of a bit of a double entendre or whatever. Obviously trial to paid is an obvious thing. It's a metric, conversion rate effectively. But it's also that kind of idea of the kind of the trial that the founder goes through to even get their first paying customer. And I've kind of framed it around, this sort of kind of stories of kind of founders, kind of clawing their way to kind of 1K MRR, which is kind of like that first base. Obviously, your first customer is first base, but I think when you get to 1K MRR, it's like, okay, we're doing something now. This is, yeah. So that was kind of the idea. I just kind of thought, I don't see many podcasts. I'm not aware of, I mean, there probably are one or two, but I feel like that part of the story doesn't get focused on much. There's a lot of kind of founders that are really trying to scrap away and get something going, and they've got kind of no. Well, the people who are doing it don't have much of a platform. They probably don't generally get approached much to do podcasts, and I think it'd be cool to give them that kind of opportunity to do it. I think it's good for them to build a bit of confidence, talking about their product and just whatever. And it's kind of good for me as well, because I haven't done this kind of thing before, and that's part of it. Is just kind of a little bit of a self-growth.
I think you would get some amazing tips as well from people that are in the trenches doing that. Even better if you could occasionally bring on some people that would talk to them about their experiences. and talk to them about kind of things that they've done along the line. So, see, I'm geeking out there because I love
Yeah.
marketing. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed marketing and growing my own businesses.
Yeah.
I almost find that more interesting than software engineering now. So
Interesting.
I was delighted a couple of years ago when I got a role for a company doing growth engineering or building a growth engineering team, because that was the intersection of marketing and software, which is like heaven for me.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you come across the podcast Starter Story.
Not that one particularly. No.
Okay, well, that's huge. Check it out,
Yeah,
because
we'll do.
there might be some lessons you can learn for
Yeah.
building your own podcast. But what's missing there is it's called Starter Story, but it's interviewing everyone when they've made it. Again,
Yeah.
you say it's that victory lap of, hey, we're
Yeah.
now doing 1 million a month or whatever.
Yeah.
This is how we started. Well, I like your angle on that. Hey, I'm doing like $500-$600 or 1K MLR. How the hell did I get my first 2 customers, and how do I get to 10 customers?
Yeah.
Because I think that's almost the more interesting bit, because when you're going from 100 to 1,000 or 1,000 to 10,000, you're kind of just scaling and systemizing what you're doing. But when you're sat there going, how do I find, I've got 2 or 3 people, how do I find the next 2 or 3? How do I get to 100?
And just all day long when I see it on LinkedIn, it's just everyone glosses over it. They're like, oh yeah, just get it, build a thing, get it in front of people, go from there. It's like, there's so much within that to kind of unpack, and that bit is really hard.
And you've got to try a lot of things to find what works, because sometimes it might be that Reddit group, sometimes it might be that forum you find, sometimes it might be posting on social media, sometimes it's going to be AdWords or Facebook ads. Sometimes it might be putting stuff on YouTube and figuring out which works. It's a lot of trial and error. There's so many different ways.
Definitely. So I'm just kind of keen to hear those stories, as you say. I feel like I might learn things from that, which maybe will help me, when I kind of start to think. Because in a way, I don't I feel like I've kind of had a bit of success. I've struggled to recreate it since, and in some ways, I feel like I'm kind of back at square one, and I don't really know what I'm doing. But I mean, there are a few sort of core kind of realizations I've had, I guess. But in terms of those actual sort of rubber meets the road sort of tactics, all that stuff changes a lot over time as well. So you just kind of feel like you need to know what people are trying now, and kind of understand what works and what doesn't. And I
think that forms an amazing basis, not just for a podcast, but potentially for a community.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I should say, something in the back of my mind is like, could I build a community? I think that'd be so cool. Because again, there are communities for kind of bootstrappers and kind of early stage founders and stuff. But I mean, there's one which kind of goes to kind of how I even got into the whole bootstrapping thing, I suppose. Because the big one that I know of is the whole microconf thing. You probably know about, and but they're almost just like, not to discredit them at all. It's amazing, what Rob Walling's built and that whole community, but it's like it's quite big now. It's like a bit intimidatingly big.
And there's some very big businesses there as well now.
Yes, for sure. So I don't know, that exists for a good reason, and it's great. But I don't know if it's really looking after the really early stage, the really little guys anymore. So I don't know if there's maybe some scope for kind of a bit of a bridge between the two. That's kind of in the back of my mind. I haven't really sort of. It's not crystal clear yet. So start small. I just get talking to some people.
I look forward to seeing where you go with that. I think it'd be very interesting. I think it'd be a very fun podcast to listen to. And
well, the first one should be out pretty soon. I recorded the first one on Monday. So so that I've got to edit it today, figure out how that works, and then figure out how you get it out. It's all a learning experience. And this is another thing that I thought would just be cool about it, just learning how to do a new thing. So I might be coming to you for some tips. I'm
cool.
certain I will.
Sure, reach out anytime. I'm conscious, Rob. We have spent nearly an hour and a half on this, so I should let you get back to your day job.
And you.
I should probably get back to my family. I can kind of hear moving around and sort of dropping hints that it's lunchtime.
and your wife not wanting to have too much editing to do, as you were saying earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. So, right, Rob, how can people best get in touch if they want to reach out to be on the podcast or want to reach out to talk about fractional CTO work?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I'm generally pretty active on LinkedIn, probably a bit too active. So just look me up on there, Rob Morgan. I mean, I don't know. Do you do the show notes? So we can stick a link in there or something?
We'll put links in the show notes. But LinkedIn's a good place to get. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the podcast is trial2paid.io.
Okay,
So
cool.
trial, not the number two. So
We'll put
trial
the link in
to
there as well.
paid, yeah, .io. So you can go on there and just put your email address in to be on the list. But and then you get an email when the episodes come out. That's the plan.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time, Rob. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and hearing about the adventures and misadventures and the lessons you've learned.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, John. I really enjoyed it.
Cool. Thank you.